The first scream came at 3:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I was staring at my phone when it pierced through the humid August night. Couldn't sleep. Never could on the first week of camp. Too much adrenaline from managing 24 teenagers who thought they were invincible. Just a nightmare, I told myself. Some kid having a bad dream about home. But then came the second scream, and the third. My name is Maya Kim, and I've been a counselor at Camp Wildwood for 3 summers running. Started when I was 19, desperate for money, and the education credits my psychology program required. Now, at 22, I thought I'd seen everything these kids could throw at me. I was wrong. The screaming was coming from Cabin 7, the co-ed cabin where we housed our 16 and 17-year-olds. I grabbed my flashlight and rushed across the dewy grass, bare feet slipping on the wooden steps. The door was already open. Inside, a cluster of terrified teenagers huddled around Emma Martinez, one of my most level-headed campers. She was hyperventilating, pointing toward the bathroom. There's someone in there, she gasped. Someone who shouldn't be. I pushed past them, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The bathroom door hung open, revealing nothing but shadows and the metallic scent of fear sweat. Emma? There's nobody. Then I saw the window, wide open, screen cut clean through. Someone had been inside. Everyone stay calm, I said, forcing authority into my voice. We're going to the main lodge, right now. As we herded the kids outside, I caught sight of Director Walsh emerging from his cabin, looking disheveled and panicked. Behind him came Jake Morrison, jogging from the staff quarters. Jake had been my closest friend here since my first summer. Tall, sandy-haired, with this easy smile that could calm down even the most homesick kid. Maya? What's going on? Jake asked, genuine concern in his voice. Someone broke into Cabin 7, I whispered, not wanting to panic the kids further. Windows cut open. Jake's face went pale in the moonlight. Jesus. Anyone hurt? No, but we need to check all the cabins. Get the other counselors. Within 20 minutes, we'd assembled everyone in the main lodge. 48 campers, 12 counselors, plus Director Walsh. The head cook, Mrs. Patterson, emerged from the kitchen in her robe, muttering angrily about damn kids playing pranks. Nurse Kelly stumbled down from the medical cabin, still half asleep, but alert enough to start checking on the shaken teenagers. Could be locals, Walsh said, but his hands were shaking as he poured coffee. Sometimes they mess with the camps, initiation stuff. Morning felt very far away. I noticed things then, small things. Walsh kept checking his phone, texting someone despite the early hour. Mrs. Patterson was unusually quiet, not her normal chatty self. And Marcus Webb, one of the senior counselors, seemed more angry than scared. This is exactly what I was worried about, Marcus muttered to another counselor. Administration cuts security, and this is what happens. Jake volunteered to take first watch. Of course he did. Always the hero, always stepping up when things got rough. But as I watched him organize the other male counselors into patrol shifts, I felt grateful to have someone so dependable. I should have felt safe. Instead, lying on the lodge floor surrounded by whispering teenagers, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Something that whispered that morning might not come for all of us. Around 5 a.m., just as false dawn began creeping through the windows, Emma Martinez sat up suddenly. "Where's Chloe?" she whispered. We did a quick head count. 47 campers. 1 missing. Chloe Watson, 15 years old, quiet, one of those kids who seemed older than her years. Her bunkmate Jessica said she'd been there when they fell asleep around 2 a.m. after the break-in, after we'd supposedly secured everyone. "She probably just went to the bathroom," Nurse Kelly said, but her voice was tight with worry. We searched the lodge, the bathrooms, the kitchen, the storage areas. No Chloe. Director Walsh was pacing now, phone pressed to his ear. "Sheriff Martinez, we have a missing camper, 15-year-old girl, Chloe Watson." Jake organized search teams immediately. "Maya, you take the lakefront with Jessica and Emma. Marcus, check the dining hall and activity areas. I'll take the hiking trails with Tom and Luis." He was so calm, so organized, so helpful. I found Chloe 20 minutes later at the rocky outcrop that overlooked the lake. She was sitting perfectly still, back against a pine tree, face turned toward the sunrise. "Chloe? Hey, we were worried about..." She didn't respond, didn't move. That's when I saw the blood. It had soaked through the back of her Camp Wildwood t-shirt, dark and sticky in the humid air. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, brown hair falling across her face like a curtain. I don't remember screaming. Don't remember running back down the trail. The next clear memory I have is Director Walsh's office, my whole body shaking as I tried to explain what I'd found. "Maya, breathe," Jake whispered, his arm around my shoulders. "Just breathe. You did everything right." But I hadn't done everything right. A 15-year-old girl was dead, and I had no idea how or why or who had killed her. Sheriff Martinez arrived within an hour, this time with 3 deputies and a crime scene team. Camp Wildwood was officially a murder investigation. They found the weapon about 20 feet from Chloe's body, a camp hatchet, the kind we used for firewood. No fingerprints. Whoever did this had been careful, organized, prepared. But here's what bothered me. The hatchet storage was in the maintenance shed, which was kept locked at night. Only staff had keys. Someone with access had done this. Someone who knew the camp's routines. Someone who understood when and where kids might be alone. As the crime scene team worked, I found myself studying the faces around me. Director Walsh kept disappearing to make phone calls, returning looking more agitated each time. Mrs. Patterson was cleaning the kitchen with aggressive efficiency, muttering about blood on her knives in a way that made my skin crawl. Marcus Webb was questioning everyone, playing amateur detective in a way that felt forced, too eager, too controlling. And Nurse Kelly? She'd gone very quiet after examining Chloe's body, refusing to talk about what she'd seen. Any one of them could be a killer. But Jake was helping coordinate everything, taking care of the traumatized kids, supporting me when I fell apart. Jake couldn't be involved in this. "We're not calling parents," Director Walsh announced around noon. "Not yet. Sheriff's orders. Nobody leaves until we have answers. Nobody leaves, including the killer." I spent the afternoon trying to keep the kids calm while my mind raced through possibilities. During lunch, I overheard Marcus arguing with Walsh in the kitchen. "Should have told them about the financial problems," Marcus was saying. "Now look what's happened." "Keep your voice down," Walsh snapped. "The insurance will cover." They stopped talking when they saw me. Financial problems? Insurance? Later, while organizing afternoon activities by the lake, I noticed Mrs. Patterson cleaning blood off a carving knife. When she saw me watching, she shrugged. "Cut myself making lunch," she said, but there was no bandage on her hands. And where had she been when Chloe went missing? Nurse Kelly was acting strange too. She kept checking her medical supplies, muttering about missing items. When I asked what was wrong, she gave me a sharp look. "Someone's been in my cabinet," she said. "Sedatives are missing, and surgical tools." Sedatives. To keep Chloe quiet. Surgical tools. To make precise cuts. But it was Marcus who really worried me. I caught him by the maintenance shed around 4 p.m., holding a set of keys and looking guilty. "Just checking the lock," he said when he saw me, making sure it wasn't tampered with. But the shed was supposed to be off limits during the investigation, and Marcus had been vocal about camp security issues for weeks, like he'd been planning something. As evening approached, I felt the weight of 47 pairs of eyes looking to me and the other counselors for safety, for answers we didn't have. Jake found me sitting by the lake as the sun set, staring at the water where Chloe used to swim. "Terrible thing," he said quietly, sitting beside me. "Makes you question everything." "Someone we know did this," I said. "Someone with access to the shed. Someone who knew Chloe would be alone." Jake nodded grimly. "I've been thinking the same thing. Walsh has been acting strange all day, and that argument with Marcus, even Jake suspected Director Walsh, which meant I wasn't crazy to be looking at everyone differently. What if it's connected to the financial problems Marcus mentioned?" I asked. "What financial problems?" I told him about the conversation I'd overheard. Jake's expression grew darker. "Insurance fraud," he said finally. "Kill a camper, blame it on outside threats, collect on the policy." It made horrible sense. But which one of them was capable of murder? That night, we arranged the sleeping situation differently. All the campers in the main lodge again, but this time the counselors took shifts in pairs. Nobody alone. Nobody unsupervised. I drew the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. shift with Tom Bradley, one of the newer counselors. We walked the perimeter together, flashlights cutting through the darkness, jumping at every sound. Around 3 a.m., Tom stopped suddenly. "Did you hear that?" I listened. Footsteps, moving through the woods parallel to our route. "Someone's out there," Tom whispered. We followed the sound, moving carefully through the trees. The footsteps stayed ahead of us, always just out of sight. Then they stopped. We waited, holding our breath, listening to the night sounds of the forest. That's when we found the second body, Michael Torres, 17 years old, one of our most responsible campers. He was lying in a small clearing, throat cut with surgical precision. But this time, the killer had made a mistake. This time, there were witnesses. Tom was hyperventilating, backing away from the body. "We have to get back. We have to tell—" "Wait," I whispered, grabbing his arm. "Look." There were footprints in the soft earth around Michael's body, clear impressions leading away toward the camp. Fresh footprints. The killer might still be nearby. We followed the trail carefully, Tom calling quietly on his radio for backup. The prints led directly to the staff quarters, to Director Walsh's cabin. The door was ajar. Inside, we could hear movement. Someone searching through drawers, papers rustling. Tom raised his radio to call for Sheriff Martinez, but I stopped him. "What if Walsh isn't the killer?" I whispered. "What if someone's framing him?" Because that's exactly what this felt like. Too obvious, too convenient. We waited outside, watching through the window. A figure moved through Walsh's cabin with a flashlight, clearly looking for something specific. But the build was wrong for Walsh. Too short, too slight. The figure turned toward the window, and I caught a glimpse of face in the flashlight beam. Mrs. Patterson. The cook was in Walsh's cabin, searching through his personal belongings. She emerged 5 minutes later, carrying a manila folder. Instead of heading back to the kitchen, she walked toward the woods, toward where Michael's body lay. We follow her, I decided, but carefully. Tom looked terrified, but he nodded. We tracked Mrs. Patterson through the forest, staying far enough back to avoid detection. She stopped at Michael's body, opened the folder, and began scattering papers around the scene, planting evidence, making it look like Walsh was the killer. But why kill Michael? And why frame Walsh? Unless Mrs. Patterson was working with someone else. Unless this whole thing was bigger than one person. As if summoned by my thoughts, another figure emerged from the shadows. Marcus Webb. "Is it done?" he asked Mrs. Patterson. "Financial records are planted. It'll look like Walsh was stealing from the camp, killed Chloe when she found out, then killed Michael to keep him quiet. They were working together. But why? The insurance money will cover our tracks," Marcus continued. "Tragic accident at a camp with financial irregularities. Easy lawsuit, easy settlement. Money, always money. But they'd killed 2 children for it." "What about the other counselors?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "Some of them are asking questions. We handle them if we have to. Make it look like the killer got them too before Walsh's final breakdown. They were planning to kill more people, including me." Tom was backing away slowly, but his foot hit a branch. The crack echoed through the forest like a gunshot. Marcus and Mrs. Patterson both turned toward our hiding spot. "Run," I whispered to Tom. But it was too late. Marcus was already moving, faster than I'd expected. He tackled Tom before he could take 3 steps, a knife appearing in his hand. The same surgical precision we'd seen on the bodies. "Maya Kim," Mrs. Patterson called out. "We know you're there. Come out, and we'll make this quick." I had 45 other kids back at the lodge, counselors who trusted me. I couldn't let these monsters hurt anyone else. "Let Tom go," I called out, stepping into the clearing. "Your problem is with me." Marcus smiled, but it was nothing like the friendly expression I'd known for 3 summers. "Our problem is with anyone who gets in the way." That's when Jake appeared behind them, moving silently through the trees like some kind of guardian angel. My heart soared with relief. Jake would save us. Jake would stop this. But instead of confronting Marcus and Mrs. Patterson, Jake walked calmly into the clearing and stood beside them, like he belonged there, like he'd been expected. "Sorry you had to see this, Maya," Jake said, and his voice was different now, colder. "We really hoped you'd stay out of it. No, this couldn't be happening. Not Jake. Anyone but Jake. 3 of you, I whispered, my world tilting sideways. Insurance fraud is complicated, Jake explained conversationally. Requires inside knowledge, staff cooperation, someone to coordinate the timeline, someone to gain the trust of the other counselors, someone to volunteer for watch duty, someone to comfort the witnesses and help them remember what they'd seen. You killed Chloe, I said, the words feeling like broken glass in my throat. Actually, that was Mrs. Patterson, very efficient with a blade. Jake's smile was horrible now. I just made sure Chloe was in the right place at the right time. How? How had I missed this? How had I trusted him for 3 years while he planned murder? The break-in was theater, I realized aloud, to establish an outside threat. Very good. Get everyone scared, create a narrative. Then tragedy strikes and Camp Wildwood becomes a liability instead of an asset. 3 years. 3 years I'd considered him my closest friend. 3 years he'd been planning this. Marcus was holding Tom at knife point, but his attention was on me. You're going to walk back to that lodge, and you're going to tell everyone that Director Walsh killed Chloe and Michael, that he's had a breakdown and is armed and dangerous. Then what? Then Walsh dies in a tragic confrontation while trying to kill more campers, Jake said. Hero counselors saved the day. Terrible tragedy, but at least the monster is stopped. They'd thought of everything, except one thing. My phone was still recording. Had been since I'd started my shift with Tom. Everything they'd just confessed was captured. If I could get back to the lodge alive, if I could warn the others, if I could save those kids. I won't do it, I said. Jake sighed. We hoped you'd be reasonable. Mrs. Patterson moved toward me with her knife, but she was older, slower. I feinted left, then dove right, rolling behind a fallen log. The chase was on. I ran through the forest like my life depended on it, because it did. Behind me, I could hear them shouting, coordinating their pursuit. But I knew these woods, had hiked every trail, explored every clearing. I had advantages they didn't. I made it back to the lodge in 10 minutes, bursting through the doors like something out of a nightmare. Everyone up, I shouted. We have to go. Now. Sheriff Martinez was there, having returned for more evidence collection. The other counselors were stirring, confused and alarmed. Maya? Sheriff Martinez stood up. What's wrong? Marcus Webb, Mrs. Patterson, and Jake Morrison, I gasped. They killed Chloe and Michael. They're coming for the rest of us. Silence. Then chaos. Some of the counselors were shaking their heads, refusing to believe it. The kids were crying, terrified. Sheriff Martinez was reaching for his radio. That's when the lights went out, and Jake's voice came from the darkness. Nobody has to get hurt, he called from somewhere near the entrance. Just send out Maya Kim, and everyone else can walk away. Maya's under our protection, Sheriff Martinez shouted back. You need to surrender now. Jake laughed. I don't think so. Something crashed through the window. Smoke began filling the lodge. They were trying to flush us out. Emergency exit, I shouted to the counselors. Get the kids to the lake. Sheriff Martinez was coordinating the evacuation, but there were too many people, too much panic. Kids were stumbling in the smoke. Counselors were trying to maintain order. And somewhere in the chaos, the killers were waiting. I helped guide a group of younger campers toward the rear exit when I felt a hand grab my shoulder. Jake. Even in the smoke and darkness, I recognized his touch. End of the line, Maya. I spun around, broke free from his grip, screamed for help. But the lodge was chaos now. Everyone focused on escape. I was on my own. Jake had a knife, but I had fury. Rage at being betrayed. Anger at what they'd done to those kids. I fought like my life depended on it, because it did. I grabbed a folding chair, swung it at his knees. He stumbled, slashed at me with the blade. It caught my forearm, sending lightning up my shoulder. But I stayed on my feet. Behind me, I could hear Sheriff Martinez organizing the evacuation. Kids were getting out, getting to safety. That was all that mattered. Jake lunged again, but I was ready this time. I sidestepped, drove my knee up into his stomach, grabbed a heavy coffee pot and swung it at his head. He went down hard, but Mrs. Patterson was coming through the smoke, her blade gleaming. That's when Marcus appeared beside her, and I realized I was outnumbered. 2 killers between me and the exit, 45 kids counting on me to survive. I wasn't going to let them down. I backed toward the kitchen, looking for weapons, for cover, for anything that might give me an advantage. That's when I remembered the recording. Everything they'd confessed was on my phone. If I could get it to Sheriff Martinez. I pulled out my phone, hit send on the recording file, addressed it 911. Backup was coming. I just had to survive long enough. Mrs. Patterson rushed me with the knife, but I was ready. I grabbed a cast iron skillet from the stove, blocked her strike, swung the pan at her head. She dropped like a stone. Marcus was more careful, circling me like a predator. You can't fight all of us, Maya. Watch me. But Jake was getting up, blood running down his face, but still moving, still dangerous. The 3 of us faced off in the smoky kitchen, 2 killers and 1 college student who refused to die. That's when Sheriff Martinez burst through the smoke, with 3 deputies behind him. Drop your weapons. Marcus and Jake both froze, caught between the law enforcement and me. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then Jake smiled that terrible, empty smile and lunged at the nearest camper. Little Emma Martinez, who'd gotten separated in the chaos. He pressed the knife to her throat. She was only 14 years old. Everyone backs off, Jake ordered, or the girl dies. Not Emma. Not after everything we'd been through. Let her go, I said quietly. Your problem is with me, remember? My problem is surviving this, Jake snapped, and she's my ticket out. But I could see the desperation in his eyes, the growing awareness that this was the end of the line, that all his careful planning had collapsed. Sheriff Martinez had his weapon drawn, but he couldn't risk a shot with Emma so close. We were at a standstill, unless... I stepped closer, hands raised peacefully. Jake, you don't want to hurt Emma. She's just a kid. Stay back, Maya. She reminds me of my little sister, I continued, moving slowly. Remember? I showed you pictures. Same age, same smile. For just a moment, his grip loosened. Just enough. Emma bit down hard on his hand, broke free,
Ouch.
ran toward the deputies, and I tackled Jake with everything I had. We went down together, the knife skittering across the floor. He was stronger, but I was desperate, fighting for every child in this lodge, fighting for the innocence these monsters had tried to destroy. Jake got his hands around my throat, started squeezing. Darkness crept in around the edges of my vision, but I could hear the kids crying, calling my name, counting on me. I managed to get my knee up, drove it into his ribs. His grip loosened just enough for me to breathe. That's when Sheriff Martinez put 3 bullets in Jake Morrison's chest. The monster fell backward onto the kitchen floor and didn't get up again. Marcus had surrendered when the shooting started, hands up, pleading that it wasn't his idea. Mrs. Patterson was unconscious but alive. 2 killers caught, 1 dead. 47 kids safe. But Chloe Watson and Michael Torres were still gone forever. I spent the rest of the night in the hospital. The knife wound needed stitches, and I had a mild concussion from the fight. But I was alive. All the kids were alive. That was what mattered. The investigation revealed everything. The insurance scheme that would have netted millions. The careful planning that had taken over a year. The other camps they'd been targeting next. How close they'd come to succeeding. Director Walsh was cleared of all suspicion. He'd been the intended fall guy all along. The financial irregularities were fabricated, planted evidence to support the narrative. But 2 children were still dead, murdered by people I'd trusted, people I'd worked alongside for years. The reporters called me a hero, said I'd saved dozens of lives, prevented a massacre. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone whose world had been turned inside out. Someone who'd learned that evil doesn't announce itself. It smiles. It helps. It shows up when you need it most. It looks exactly like friendship. I don't work with kids anymore. Can't. Every time I see a group of teenagers laughing together, I wonder which one of them is planning something terrible. Every time someone offers to help, I wonder what they really want. I know this isn't healthy. I know I'm letting them win by living this way. But knowledge and healing are different things. And some breaks don't mend clean. The kids from that night have all moved on, I'm told. Therapy and time and the resilience of youth. They probably don't think about Camp Wildwood much anymore. But I think about them every day. About how close we came to losing them all. About how Jake's smile never wavered, even with a knife in his hand. About how evil can hide behind kindness for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear Jake's voice calling my name. Not the threatening version from that last night, but the friendly one, the concerned one, the one that made me feel safe when everything was falling apart. That voice was a lie. But I can't stop missing it. Can't stop mourning the friend who never existed. Can't stop wondering who else in my life might be wearing a mask. I live alone now, work a desk job, keep to myself, safe, lonely, but safe. And every morning when I wake up, I remember that I saved those kids. That when it mattered most, when everything fell apart and the monsters revealed themselves, I stood between them and the darkness. It doesn't make up for Chloe and Michael. Nothing ever will. But it's something. It's enough to keep going, even if I never sleep through the night again. Even if I never trust another easy smile. Even if I spend the rest of my life listening for footsteps in the dark. Because monsters are real, and they look exactly like the people we love.